Thank you for joining this session. So we're going to keep it real simple. I'm going to flip it right over to you. Go ahead and tell us about yourself, who you are, and we'll begin from there. Go ahead.
Well, I was born as a very small child, and that was way back in 1952. And my father owned an auto body shop, which was right underneath the house. And at the time, he was also involved in racing midget cars. And I think I was about 2.5 years old when he built one for me. And by the time I was 5 years old, I'd started racing quarter midgets. And I did that probably till I was about 13 years old. And at one point in time, between my father and myself, we had accumulated somewhere around 60 or 70 trophies from winning races. And one day I came home from school and my dad came home from work and all the trophies were gone. My mom had taken them all apart and put them in boxes and put them in the attic and said, "I'm not dusting these anymore." So she left us 3 trophies. The first one, the biggest one, and the last one. That was what we had on the shelf from that point on. She goes, "I am done dusting trophies." So that was the end of that. But the racing kind of died off a little bit. And then I know there was the high school, and then my girlfriend was class valedictorian, and she went to Penn State. And I thought, well, I'll go to Penn State too. And she said, "No, you won't. You didn't graduate in the top 10% of your class," which is very true. I was probably in the bottom third, but I really didn't care. It wasn't that I wasn't, I just didn't put any effort into it. So she kind of challenged me that I couldn't get into Penn State. So I took a couple days and drove up to State College in the middle of the summer and went to the admissions office and got the book and spent a whole day sitting in the library going through the book, how to get into, what you have to do to get into Penn State. And I found a little thing at the end of the book, and it was a special program called the 13-2 program. And I was like, I wonder what that is. I started reading it. And it turns out that if you get 13 credits at a 2.0 or better in like adult evening education, you can automatically transfer in as a full-time student. So I said, great. I came up in the middle of summer. I started taking night courses, and I got a job. And probably by the following spring, I had all my freshman courses completed, and I had a 3.4 grade point average. So I was automatically admitted into Penn State as a junior, and or a sophomore, I mean, which kind of surprised a whole bunch of people. And so I was, while I was at Penn State, I rapidly discovered that I was going to run out of money quick because, well, school's expensive. Even back then, it really wasn't as expensive back then as it is now, but it was still, I was running out of money. So I opened my own little business. So I was going to school and running a body shop on the side, and an opportunity came by for me to purchase a dirt track sprint car, outlaw type sprint car. And I was always a dream of mine from when I was a little kid, growing up in the quarter midgets. So it was a silly thing, but I took all the money that I had for school and bought a race car. I still had the body shop, so that supported the race car. And so I did that for few years until it just got so expensive. The price of racing kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and I couldn't keep up with it because I didn't have a sponsor. And so I had to kind of give that up. But I kind of moved on. I started another business doing fiberglass fabricating, which kind of stemmed out of the race car. I was building my own race car bodies, and then I started building race car bodies for other people. I ended up building a body for a car that Paul Newman drove. So I opened another business, and I had that for about 10 years, doing all kinds of fiberglass stuff. I started something really unique, old building facades, the historic buildings. They really weren't big on anything but original equipment being put back on historic buildings. And I designed this fiberglass project to restore these old buildings with fiberglass that absolutely exactly duplicated the original building. And the National Historical Society actually gave me approval to do this on some buildings. I restored all of the cornice work on a building at the University of Pittsburgh. I did a building in downtown Cleveland called the Hoyt Block. It's right on the corner going into the flats in Cleveland. I did a building, an old building in a coal company building in Indiana, Pennsylvania, did all the cornice work. And I had a partner in the business, and we parted companies. I gave him the business, and I went on to something else. I ended up in Cleveland, where I bought a model company. Well, I started working for a guy named Bob Dively, who was kind of a friend. I knew him through flying model airplanes. And I went to work for him in his insurance company office, but he also had a company that built model airplane kits and sold them all over the world. And the guy who was running it for him really wasn't doing the job that he'd hoped. So he asked me to go down and take a look. And I ended up taking over total control of the model company. And when he retired, I bought the business from him. So I ran the model company for, well, I still have it. But a lot of things changed over the years. Unfortunately, 2 years after I bought the model company, they started bringing in models from China, completely finished, ready to fly. And they were selling them for less than I could build a kit. So that kind of shot a hole in the business. I did manage to salvage it. I moved it from Cleveland to New Jersey, and I went into business with another model company, which I eventually absorbed that one too. And but I got to New Jersey because I got a job as a general manager of a stainless steel fabricating company. They had a kind of a problem. Their general manager had passed away, unfortunately, from a heart attack, and they couldn't find anybody to run the business, but they'd known me through the model airplanes, so they said, "You want to run the company?" And I said, "I don't know anything about stainless steel." And they said, "Well, we've seen what you can do with other stuff. You can learn." And so they hired me, which really surprised me. But I did that for about 9 years, and they eventually closed the company. I went to work for a company doing aircraft interiors on full-scale airplanes. In the meantime, I'd bought my airplane. I found a really good deal on a 1946 Air Coupe, and I bought that. And in 2010, I completely restored it from the ground up and took it from being an old beater airplane and turned it into a show plane. And then I forget what year it was. It it didn't work out with the airplanes, the repair, interior work, um, and I stopped working for them, and I was out of work for about a year and a half, and I went to work for Crown Castle, another company doing work with cellular communications, another business I had absolutely no idea how to do. But they said, "Oh, you'll learn," and I did. So, um, and I've been with them. Well, I'm still with them, but I've been with them for about 9 years now. And well, that's kind of like it in a nutshell up to now. So I just bought a house in Florida, and I'm planning to retire from Jersey, move to Florida, bring the model company down here, and run it out of my shop in the backyard of the house and see what happens.
Bill, it sounds like you've done a lot. Can you tell us throughout your careers, all the moves that you've done, where in the world have you been geographically? Where have you visited? Where you've worked?
Well, I spent a week in Spain the year after I graduated from high school. My girlfriend was a year behind me, and her class did a trip to Spain, and they were one person short of being able for the teacher to be able to take her husband for free. So they let me tag along with them. So I got to spend a week in Spain. That was my first ever international travel. That was interesting. But I've been all over the country. I've lived in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, State College, Pennsylvania, Cleveland, Chicago. I spent some time in Wisconsin. I spent some time in Washington, D.C. While I was working with the aircraft company, there was a problem with these two helicopters that they shipped over to South Korea. They were the presidential helicopters, and they had some problems with them, and they sent me and a couple of people over, and I spent 5 weeks in South Korea working on the president's helicopter over there, which was really, really interesting. South Korea I would go back there in a heartbeat. What a great place that is, and the nicest people I've ever met in my life. I have never been anywhere where people were so polite. It was amazing. I truly enjoyed that. I made a couple little trips to islands and stuff like that for vacation, but other than that, those are the major ones.
Okay, let me ask a few questions I find interesting as I listen to you. What is the most painful thing that has happened to you in your lifetime?
I don't know. There have been. Are you talking emotionally or physically?
However it feels to you. I don't want to explain it any further. What was the most painful thing that happened to you?
Well, as with anybody, it's painful when your mother and your father die. They were 20 years apart, but it was still, they were both very, very painful. But that's probably the most traumatic thing.
Okay. What was the darkest moment in your life?
When I had to declare bankruptcy because I had some problems with the business. I had a business associate that died in an airplane crash, and the way the business was structured, everything just collapsed on me, and I had to I had to declare bankruptcy, which was absolutely against everything I believe in, but I had no choice.
So what was the happiest moment in your life?
Well, I met a girl that was just absolutely the most amazing girl in the entire world. I met her, she was a senior in college, and I had already, gone into racing and other things, but smartest person I ever met in my life. I have no idea what she saw in me, but must have been something. But we were kind of together and apart at the same time for about 9 years. She went to work for the FBI, and she was in Washington, and I was not. So we had a kind of a long distance relationship for a long time. But her, she got promoted, and she was pretty did pretty well. I actually felt that being with her would be a deterrent to her career. So, and I wasn't willing to go to Washington. So we kind of parted ways, which is really sad. She was very special.
Understood. So what is the meaning of life to you? Why are we alive? Why are we on this earth?
I've been trying to figure that out for the longest time. I have a take on it that's probably different from most people. Some people believe in God and creation and that sort of thing. And I have no problem with anything anybody believes. They can believe whatever they want. I kind of sort of think that life itself is an ongoing thing, kind of like a force that flows through the universe. And at the moment of creation, that life force is imparted to you, and you do with it what you do. I mean, whether it be good, bad, or whatever. And in the end, that life force, when you die, that life force leaves your body, goes back into the flow throughout the universe, and sometimes parts of it goes into a new life somewhere else, which kind of, when you talk about people being reincarnated and stuff like that, I think that if at the moment you die, someone else is born, there's a possibility that a lot of your life force goes into them, and they have some of your memories when they're born. It's, because people have that, I've read about it, but I don't know.
So you mentioned your parents unfortunately passed. So do you believe that one day you will reunite with them?
I don't know. In the grand scheme of the way I think things work, probably not. I think what happens, like I said, your life force goes back into like a flow through the universe, and like you're kind of with everybody.
What do you think about the pandemic that we're going through?
Well, there's so many conspiracy theories that go behind it, and it's not like it hasn't happened before. It's just never happened this bad before. In the past, we didn't have the communications that we have now, and we didn't have the population densities that we have now. So a lot of the pandemics in the past have have wiped out entire civilizations. I mean, you go to South America, I mean, there's whole entire civilizations that have just vanished with no trace. Well, who knows what happened to them? Could it have been a pandemic? Maybe. You know, you look at the plagues, the Black Plague, what it did across Europe. You know, that wiped out lots and lots of people across Europe. Well, there was nobody in the United States and there wasn't any contact. So, you know, the Indian tribes that lived in the United States were unaffected, you know. And that's part of a lot of Indian tribes were wiped out because when the settlers came from Europe, they brought diseases with them that the Indian people had absolutely no immunity to. So, I mean, it's hard to say. Like I said, it's not like it hasn't happened before. It's just that there's so many people so close together and so much travel that it expands, you know, exponentially. And that's what's happened.
So how do you think people are reacting to it? How do you think they're doing?
Some people are doing what they should, and some people are being stupid. It's unfortunate that the stupid people end up hurting the people that are trying to do the right thing. The people that amaze me are the people that work in the hospitals. You know, they're up close and personal, and I mean, I can't, you know, I just can't believe that they face this every day. You know, I'm safe in my house. These people, you know, it just amazes me. I don't know if I could go to work if I worked in a hospital.
Mm-hmm. Couple more questions and I'll let you go. What do you think makes a good person a good person? Or I should say, what do you think makes a person a good person?
Well, I try to be a good person. I think, you know, somebody that you don't lie, cheat, or steal. You support your friends and your family the best you know how. You know, most important is you make sure that you care about the people who care about you. You know, I mean, you have to be a good friend. You can't just be a casual friend. You really, you know, I know that I would put myself in debt if a friend needed help bad enough that happened. I would probably do that. I have in the past, so I'm pretty sure I'd do it again. It's just a matter of, you just got to take care of the people that are around you. And if we all work together, help each other out, it'd just be a much better world.
What's the number one trait that you look for in a friend and a friendship?
I mean, you know, if I'm doing something wrong, I want them to tell me I'm doing something wrong. You know, I want them to have that level of intimacy that, like, you know, it's like they pull me aside and go, hey, stop doing that. You know, you're doing that is not right. You shouldn't be doing it.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting. Any last advice or anything that you want to leave this interview with?
No, not really. I don't. I don't know that I have. I don't know that I have the wisdom of the ages to do that. Just be good to each other, and especially now. You know, we need to really help each other out as best we can at this point in time.
Well, thank you for joining. This was an amazing session. Thank you so much, and have a great night.
Thank you. Talk to you soon.